All right. And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Form from the Committee of 70. Today, we are having our fifth of six interviews as part of our Studio C70 series. Today, we have Dr. Nina Ahmad, a Democrat nominee for City Council at Large. And now I'm going to turn it over to students, my former students at Freire, who are going to be conducting today's interview. So I'm going to go off screen and turn it over to them.
Okay, my first question is, what plans do you have on changing the city? That makes sense.
So yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for having me. It's wonderful to see you all because you really are the voices we should be listening to. Thank you for that question. You know, that's a big question, right? What are some changes we need to see? We need to see a lot of changes on many fronts to make Philadelphia a safe, a healthy, and a prosperous city for everyone. I am using my platform as a health platform, looking at the issues we have through a health lens. So for example, when we think of gun violence, I'm very interested in addressing it as a public health issue so that we can look at the cause, we can look at who's engaged, and we can look at what are some solutions, all looking at it through a health lens. We're all traumatized from feeling that there's violence everywhere. And some of it is perception and most of it is real. So one of the things that I think, we have a lot of anti-violence programs in our city. I think each of them should have a mental health component where it allows people to, whether you're the victim or you're the perpetrator or you're just the bystander, we work with your mental health needs before we even say what are some tools for you to use to address this. So same thing we want to use in housing insecurity. A lot of people don't have a place to live. And we need to look at all the tools we have in our toolbox, because if you're not having a safe space to live, you really can't go to school and learn properly. You really can't do all the things in life to be a regular human being. So same thing with food insecurity. If you're hungry, you can't even learn. So all of these issues, which include, as I said, violence, housing insecurity, food insecurity, looking at our environmental issues that are causing people to have asthma, and you have lead and asbestos in some of the schools. Many of you know, many schools are being shut down. We have to address that. We can't send teachers and young students into a place where they're going to get sick. So we look at it as a broad way to make change, make Philadelphia a healthier city, and thereby a stronger city.
You turn off.
Hi, I want to go next.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Okay. You hear me?
Okay, Jalen, Mr. Sim's favorite student. I like that.
One question I have is, what are your plans on addressing gun violence?
So I just kind of touched on it in Amaya's question, was we need to look at gun violence as a public health epidemic. And by that, I mean there are multiple parts to it. One is looking at how are these guns, the illegal guns coming on the street? How are we having people going to stores and be a straw purchaser and buying, many guns and then putting them out the street? We need to stop it at the source, right? That's one piece. The other piece is, as I said, we need mental health care for people to understand you don't need to settle a beef with the gun. If you have this street versus that street having a fight and you're bringing a gun to it, why do you feel the need to do that? Because not only are you're going to probably kill someone and maybe get killed too. So we need to make sure young people, and it's not just young people, it's all people who are engaged using guns as a tool to settle their differences and make those choices. Why are we doing that? We are doing that sometimes when we think that there's no other way to settle a problem. And that's why we need those alternative paths to show, and we have to start young. How do you resolve conflict without resorting to violence. And that comes in school, that comes at home, that comes with our community, giving these resources. I deeply believe in something called cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is training your brain to calm down, literally. So when you are in a fight or flight mode, when you're like feeling that you're in danger, you have a hormone called cortisol in your body, and that doesn't allow you to make really good decisions. So in order to calm down and get your brain in a place where you can make good decisions, we need to have some kind of way to do that. And that's where one of the tools can be cognitive behavioral therapy. And the second thing is that when we think about a community response, we know where the hotspots are. We need to make sure we're bringing all the resources before problems happen. And we really need to talk to all of you about how do you work with social media? How do you take the influence of social media that is driving a lot of these issues? I want to sit down with the young people in our city. I want to sit down with the people who give us these platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all of these, and have them come to the table with young people to say, how do we regulate that? So a 12-year-old told me, how can I open my phone and see someone getting killed on it? That should not be something we see. That traumatizes us as well. So we have multiple ways. It's not one answer. We have to do all of it, and we have to chew gum and walk at the same time, and we can do it. And I need all your help actually to do it.
Hi.
Hi, Howard.
So a question I had was, is there any problems that you see in like schools in Philadelphia, and how do you plan to fix those problems?
I was just reading an article about truancy, about apparently 50% of students in Philadelphia at some point have been truant from school. And the article goes on to give some examples about why some of the children they were working with, why they were not going to school. Most of this were things that happened to them beyond their control, right? For one of the young women who was interviewed, things were going bad at home and housing was an issue. So when we talk about solving a problem like truancy, and we have to get our young people, all of you, educated so that you can get actually good jobs once you're done, and you can have one job with a living wage. But if you're not being able to read, write, and do arithmetic at grade level, you're not going to be able to get those jobs. But if you're not in school, you're not going to get the tools. So in order to address that, we need to bring in other services. So when we see this young person, and we can one by one look at each person and figure out what their reasons are and address it. If it's housing, let's look at housing and how we can resolve that for that particular family. And we have a lot of tools for that. If it's something with mental health, let's make sure they have the resources to get help to resolve that. If it's to do with, they're afraid to go to school because somebody's going to beat them up, let's look at that. I've heard from children who've told me, I love talking to young people because you have answers to a lot of things we are looking at. Somebody told me that a lot of times they have complained to school authorities about bullying and no one's listened. Well, listen, we gotta work on that because that's an adult issue. We need to have a pathway where your voices and what you bring to the table must be heard. So when I look at education and look at making sure all of you have access to it, not in schools that are crumbling with asbestos and lead and making you sick, those are things we have to solve. That's not within your power as a student. So we kind of know all the problems. We now have to have solutions to address them. And we have to be what I call disaggregate data. We can't say one solution fits everybody. What will work for you will not work for me, maybe. So we have to have that small class size in order to know each student and know today, Howard's having an issue with so-and-so, and, Amaya's having an issue, some other completely different issue, but the end result is both of them are having issues in school. Let's address them. But if you have 30 plus children with only one teacher, they're not going to know you. They don't have time to get through the curriculum and know you. So we need a teacher, we need some support, we need a counselor, we need a nurse, we need a library. These are things that are not asking for the moon. These are what should come in a school. We should have art, music, we should have sports, we should have all of these things. We grew up having all of these things, and I don't know where they all went. So we have to make a priority to make sure you have all the tools to get you ready for the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. My question is, what skills or experience do you have that you feel like would be a good thing to bring to the city council?
Oh, thank you for that. And do you pronounce your name Malaysia?
Yeah.
Lovely name. It's a massive country. Yeah. So, so what skill sets do I bring? One, I'm a scientist, right? I'm trained. I have a PhD in chemistry from the University of Pennsylvania. Then I did postdoctoral fellowship in molecular genetics, and then I worked in that field in Wills Eye and Thomas Jefferson. I was a joint appointment there. I moved from that to being in public service, and I was appointed a deputy mayor in the city when Jim Kenney was mayor in the first term, in his first 4 years. And I started the Office of Public Engagement. So I have the science part of me drives me to be evidence-based, meaning, as I was talking to the Howard before, I need the data to know what are the issues. So that means the solutions come based on what actually is happening, not just what I'm thinking or somebody told me, but give me the numbers. Tell me how many people were there. Let's look at all the best practices that can address those issues. So that's evidence-based. Having worked in government before, I have seen how it works on the executive side, from the side that actually enacts the legislation that city council will do. And so now I'm going to be on the other side, making policy, but when I make it, because of my public engagement work, I want people closest to the pain with me, helping me make that policy, not just me thinking I know everything. And saying, if it's talking about issues of truancy, I want children there, the students there, I want the families there, I want teachers there, I want the school administration there, and I want the greater public to see how can we help our children make sure they have a welcoming environment in school. And that's how the policy will be built. And then I served President Obama as he appointed me to a federal advisory commission. I got to see how federal government works. And so what I want to do around issues that are big, like gun violence, I want federal, state, and local. Local meaning city of Philadelphia, state meaning Pennsylvania, and the federal government to come together to work on solutions, because the federal government can do the whole thing around how are guns getting in our city, right? How are they coming into, we have ATF, we have a lot of resources, we have the Department of Justice, we can all use them to address part of the problem around gun violence. Then the state piece comes in when we want mental health care. The Medicaid part is handled by the state. So we need to talk to them to see what are the resources out there for us to make sure our Philadelphians are getting all those resources, make sure it's properly funded, and then examine how it's actually rolling out. And for the local part, the municipal part, where we're all going to be on city council, we are going to make that policy, evidence-based, policy-driven legislation that will address the issues, say for gun violence, making sure people have resources. So being very specific about what the issue is. Is it bullying in school? Is it bullying on the streets? Or is it somebody, a ring that is using young people to hijack cars, which are sold abroad? It's a much bigger ring, but we're only looking at the young people doing it. How do we address that? That would be our local resources that we go into addressing that issue. So having had that level of experience really helps me kind of shape what I'm going to do on council. And one last thing that's really important to me, I lived through a war as a child. So when I was growing up, I come from a tiny country called Bangladesh, and that had to fight for freedom. And in 9 months, 3 million people died. That's why gun violence is so near and dear to my heart of resolving it, because I know as a child how scared I was about what was going around me. And the way I survived that was by having a village. My parents, my grandparents, my aunties and uncles keep us safe. We need to be that for our city of Philadelphia. Some children in our city don't have that village, don't have family, might be in the foster care system, might be all kinds of issues. We need to be that village to make sure what I felt, even though there was danger around me, there were people who loved me and cared for me that would keep me safe. So put it all together, I think I bring a very diverse experience to City Council.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Okay.
Okay, so where do you? I'm waiting till things quiet down. All right. Where do you think most of Philadelphia taxpayer dollars go towards? And if you can change where our money goes towards, what would you put more funding towards?
So a lot of our money, we have a $6.1 billion budget, and we provide service with the tax dollars you pay. We provide services with them. Police get a large amount of our budget, right? And I would love to see much more community policing within that budget piece, and real community policing, meaning we need to match police to communities they serve. So they need to be culturally competent. I want to make sure all our service departments, but police particularly, know what it is they're going into, who they are serving, and how they build those relationships. The mental health piece that I talked about, calming people down, I think we need that very much in the police, meaning police cadets should be assessed for their mental health, because that's how you decide how you're going to escalate or de-escalate in a situation. But more importantly than that, I think police should need to work with mental health providers. So in some cases, when the 911 call comes, we shouldn't be sending police. We should be sending our mental health care unit, which we have. We have mobile units. I want to put more resources in that. And I want to make sure the police are also getting supported, so they don't feel like, oh, we all hate you, you're just there. No, we need to have, that's why community policing becomes so important. We have a good relationship. They know their neighborhood. They should be walking the beat. They should be knowing, which house is, where is, X person in this house is having a beef with Y person down the street. Let's have a community engagement around that. So before things become problematic, we address it. So I would look at the police budget very carefully to make sure how are those dollars being used. And the other space is our public health space. I want to look and see how those dollars are being used and why the mental health and the public health are not speaking as much. They should be working as one unit. So I want to look into that as well. And then of course we have schools. So we have to really look at the money we give to the school from our tax dollars. How are they being used to make sure you get a proper education, and what are the gaps? Because we know there are gaps. We know they're not fully funded. We know those things, and we have to advocate for more money. We don't have any more money to give, so the state has to give, and we need to make sure the formula funding that provides for education is fair and just, and they make sure that the Commonwealth ruling that said the state of Pennsylvania is not being fair in how they put out their money. I want to make sure we keep an eye on that, so you get that. There's some other areas, but for time purposes, how we spend money on the police is very important to me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, I have a question.
Hi.
So, what's your position on charter schools?
So, I think charter schools are here to stay. When charter schools, from what I understand, had started, they were going to be sort of schools where we tried out new things and tried out new ways to see if they would work better for all students. Right now, the way we stand, we have your neighborhood schools, we have the charter schools, and we have these other religious and other independent schools as well. I think charter schools are here to stay. We just need to make sure that the money that goes to charter schools, I would like to be a separate line item than the money that comes to our traditional neighborhood schools. That will allow less problems, and also we need more accountability, meaning when the money comes to the charter school from our budgets, we would like to see how it's being used. The charter school allows people to have buildings, and sometimes we see a lot of problems in how it's like becomes a business, meaning the charter school starts, but an operator comes and takes over, and they are pushing things in a certain way. So we need more accountability. But charter schools are an option for people. They will stay. We just need to make them stronger and make sure we have the same set of rules that operates for them as it operates for our regular traditional community neighborhood schools. I think we need to invest in charter schools.
Thank you.
Hi there. Okay. Can't hear you yet.
Okay. Oh my bad. I was gonna ask, how do you feel about the Black femicide rates, and do you have any plans on stopping them, or have any plans on solving it?
Yes. So Philadelphia population is 52% women. All right, women and girls, and yet we are not safe. And I think when we look, there are many reasons for the violence that is going on against women, but particularly in the Black community, right? We need to understand what those are. There's a lot of human trafficking issues going on. A lot of young women are, sucked into that. We are not addressing that. We have to look at intimate partner violence. You talked about femicide, right? That was, excuse me, your question, Kimana? Okay, so the intimate partner violence piece is very, very important. In this pandemic, it has gone up. We found the rates of, abuse at home has become increased. And all of this, again, is predicated by the access to firearms, to guns. We have rules on the books. We're trying to make sure we enact around making sure those who have issues of domestic abuse don't have access to guns. So there's a red flag law that we want to make sure the state institutes, and we have to advocate for that. But more importantly, we have to make sure when we have young people, before they're involved in all this violence, what is the root causes of targeting young women for violence? It's really about power. If you think about the issues, the kinds of you know, crime that is instituted against young women, particularly the sexual assaults, which some, you know, many times resulting in death, is coming from a conversation around power. It's, you know, rape is used as a tool of power, and we need to take that power away. And one of the ways to do it is to have our young women know all these signs of when these are coming and what resources we give you to fight back against them and not to be targeted by them. We have things currently on the books where if somebody is harassing you and it's getting really problematic, you can get a restraining order, but the restraining order doesn't really protect you in the sense that someone can still break that restraining order. So again, this is the cultural competency in our law enforcement. We want to make sure that they understand if there is a order of protection that you have pulled out, they should know who those people are. And we should be taking special attention on people who have these protective orders, because we know they are prone to much higher violence. So there's lots of tools that we could use that I don't think we're using currently. And that can be data-driven, again, because we know the courts are issuing these protective orders, and who are they? And why are we not making sure they stay safe? Because the perpetrator can still come and do things to you in spite of the restraining order. So we have a lot of tools, but we have to make sure that we are a priority more than anything else. That is something I can commit to. I'm currently the president of the Pennsylvania chapter of the National Organization for Women, and violence against women is one of our 6 core responsibilities that we work on. So I'm very committed to that. And by the way, I mentioned that war that I lived through. In that war, in that 9 months, over 250,000 women and girls were sexually brutalized to shut them up. So we're talking institutionalized way of, you know, violating women's rights, violating women's lives. And I'm deeply aware of that, and I come from that. So I am very committed to making sure we do something on that front. So thank you for that really important question.
All right, thank you so much. Another great interview. Thank you to everybody for participating. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad, and the students, and Brian for your time at Freire. A couple of reminders: on November 7th is Election Day coming up. Make sure to visit 70.org to use our ballot tools and stay informed, and tune in to our upcoming sessions. We have one at 3 o'clock today, so that is our next one. And everyone, thank you for watching, and have a great day.